Today, we are digging into a pretty provocative idea, one that really asks us to question the bedrock of our modern economy. We're going to explore the concept of degrowth. So, let's get into it. From the time we're kids, we're basically taught that the goal is always growth. A rise in GDP, more production, more consumption, that's how we measure success, right? But what if that core assumption, that fundamental belief, is actually flawed? What if the constant chase for more growth is the problem, not the solution? Now, I get it. The word degrowth can sound a little scary, like it means going backwards or wanting everything to fail. But that's not really the idea at all. Proponents say degrowth isn't anti-growth. The real key here is that word decentering. It's about shifting our focus, moving economic growth from the absolute center of everything and asking, okay, what should we actually be aiming for?
And this is probably the most important distinction to make right up front. Degrowth is not a recession. A recession is a chaotic, unplanned disaster. It's what happens when a system designed for growth suddenly fails, and it causes a ton of pain. Degrowth, on the other hand, is imagined as something totally different, a planned, democratic, and fair transformation of society. The goal is to actually improve our lives and the planet, not just shrink the economy inside the same old broken system.
The degrowth movement has a pretty cool symbol to get this mindset across, the snail. And it makes sense, right? It's not about stopping completely or going in reverse. It's about consciously choosing a different speed, a slower, more intentional, and way more sustainable pace for how we live together. So, to really wrap our heads around the alternative that degrowth is offering, we first have to take a closer look at the system it's critiquing. Let's talk about what the source material calls the growth ideology. The thing is, this idea isn't some law of nature. It's a belief system. The growth ideology is this conviction, which really took hold during the Industrial Revolution, that the only way for humanity to flourish is through constant economic expansion. And it's become so normal, so deeply embedded, we barely even notice it's there to be questioned. But supporters of degrowth argue that this ideology comes with some massive hidden costs. It's what's fueling the climate crisis. It creates these huge inequalities where a tiny fraction of people get wildly prosperous at the expense of everyone else. And it just takes too much, from people and from the planet. And if you dig down to its philosophical roots, you find what's called an anthropocentric worldview. It sounds like a mouthful, but it's a simple idea with huge consequences. It's the belief that humans are somehow separate from and superior to the rest of nature, that the world is just a big box of resources for us to use however we want. Okay, so right about now, you might be thinking, hold on, what about sustainable development? Isn't that the whole solution? Well, this is where the degrowth critique gets really, really interesting. It points to what it sees as a huge paradox baked right into that very idea. I mean, we've all heard this definition, or some version of it. It sounds amazing, right? Take care of ourselves today, but don't mess things up for tomorrow. It sounds responsible and fair, but here's the conundrum. From a degrowth perspective, sustainable development is trying to solve the problems caused by growth with more growth. It's just relabeled as sustainable growth. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline, because you're using the exact same logic that started the fire in the first place. This slide really breaks down that built-in conflict. The sustainability part of the phrase, that comes from an eco-social worldview, the idea that humans are part of nature. But the development part, that comes straight out of the growth ideology, the idea that humans are separate from nature. Degrowth argues that you can't just mash these two totally opposite worldviews together and expect it to work. And you can see this play out in the real world. Just take a look at the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Goal number 8, right here, explicitly calls for, and I quote, sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth. See that? The focus, the central noun, is still growth. The adjectives change, but the core command to grow remains the same. So, if the current system has these deep flaws, and even some of the popular solutions are problematic, what does the alternative actually look like? This is where we get into the core principles of degrowth. It pretty much boils down to 4 huge shifts. First, we need a whole new worldview. Second, we have to completely redefine what it means to be prosperous. Third, we need to reduce something economists call throughput. And fourth, we have to start building more local solutions. That first one is the biggie, the eco-social worldview.
It's that massive paradigm shift away from thinking humans are the center of the universe. It's about finally recognizing that we are not the masters of the web of life, but just one deeply integrated part of it. Then there's this concept of throughput. Basically, that's all the stuff, the energy, the raw materials that our economy pulls from the earth, uses for a bit, and then dumps as waste. The goal of degrowth is to radically shrink this physical flow of stuff, while at the very same time actually improving our quality of life. And if you do that, you end up with a vision for a very different kind of society. You move away from one that's built on competition and taking, and toward one that's built on cooperation, on sharing what we have, and on relationships of give and take with each other and with the planet itself. And all of this leads us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. How do we redefine a good life if it's no longer about just getting more and more stuff? This chart pretty much says it all about our current situation. When we talk about prosperity, we are obsessed with one thing, GDP. It takes up almost the whole pie. Things like our actual well-being or the health of the environment, they're just tiny little slivers, almost an afterthought. Now compare that to the degrowth approach. It's a completely different dashboard for what makes a society successful. Suddenly, the big questions become, how much quality time do we have? How strong are our communities and relationships? How's our health, both physical and mental? Are we living in balance with the natural world? Are our lives meaningful? These become the things that really count. Ultimately, it's about a huge shift in thinking. It's about moving away from what's called a logic of manufactured scarcity, where we're constantly told we don't have enough and need more, to a logic of abundance. The argument is that we actually do have enough for everyone to live a good life, right now, if we just create systems built on cooperation to share and manage it all wisely. And so that leaves us with this one final, really big question to chew on. It's the question that sits at the very heart of the degrowth challenge to our world. What if true prosperity, a truly rich and fulfilling life, wasn't about the endless, frantic race for more, but about the shared, sustainable, and joyful art of simply having enough?